Dennis a quick question, actually. Dennis, during the day at Polydor, when I was there in my second term, did you ever get to work with James last?
Well, I never got to work with him, but I remember that I got invited to an after Royal Albert Hall party. It was in, what was that place? There was a restaurant or a club where all the girls dressed up in
Playboy
uniforms. I can't remember the name of it.
Penthouse?
No. It'll come to me. It's something like Razors or something like that. They dressed up in, girls' uniforms with stilettos and fishnets. And the old man said, "You got to go." And I said, "It's not my gig." He said, "No." He said, "I've got to go." He said, "You can talk to him." He said, "I've got nothing to go there."
I've lost
Dennis.
Oh, damn, come back.
Story.
Am I back?
It's the censor. They've decided that was going to be a revolting story and they've cut you off.
Yeah.
My laptop is overheating.
Yeah.
If I just why I asked Dennis that question was I was like the head of promotion at Polydor, and James Larson and his band come in to do the Albert Hall and to do some other gigs and etc. And George McManus, who was like rightly mentioned a minute ago by Dennis, the marketing manager, said to me, "Steve, said, do me a favour, said, will you ask Hansi?" That was his name, not James. If you knew him, you called him Hansi. Will you ask Hansi out to dinner tomorrow night? And I said, "Of course I will." Yeah. So I was out doing a TV with James Hansi. And I said, "Do you like to go to dinner tomorrow night, James?" And he said, "Yeah, of course I would. I'd love to. Where will we go?" And I said, "We'll go somewhere. I know, we'll find somewhere. A restaurant called L'Etoile is always a good bet for us lot." And he said, "Yeah, fine. Okay, I'd love to. Thank you very much." So George rang me the next morning and said, "Did you book a restaurant?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I booked it. Yeah, so I booked it for 5 people." And he said, "How many?" I said, 5. He said, "Oh, no. Change it. I said, "What?" He said, "You invited Hansi out to dinner or James?" And I said, "I invited Hansi, I think." And he said, "Right, okay, rebook the restaurant for 40 people. And I said, "Pardon?" He said, "When you invite Hansi, you invite the whole band, the crew, everybody." So I got lumbered with this huge meal bill at L'Etoile. If you know L'Etoile, I'm sure some of you guys...
Oh, my God.
It wasn't cheap. But great fun, having said that. That's why I wanted to ask Dennis.
I mean, I think he was on Polydor Records, wasn't he, throughout his career? And he churned out 2 or 3 albums every year. And he sold 250 million albums. I mean, he's up there with people like Fleetwood Mac for record sales. An extraordinary
he was.
artist. People never think of him in those same terms, but he really was, one of the world's biggest selling artists.
He was godlike at Polydor, and even today, everybody, I mean, never bowed to him, but you respected him so ultimately. And to get a cover on one of his albums, by the way, when I was in publishing, was a god. Really, to go, wow, got a cover on a James Last album. Well, you'd know that, John, yeah?
Yeah. Easy listening made money. Bit like compilation albums.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, that's why I asked Dennis, but he seems to have gone.
Nigel, I'm guessing James Last never appeared at the Marquee, did he?
You never know. I've been going back through like reams and reams of adverts for the Marquee, going back to, if Muddy Waters played there in 1958 kind of thing at the beginning, and Stevie Wonder and Simon and Garfunkel, and apparently, I've heard that Simon and Garfunkel didn't have anywhere to stay, so they did a gig there, and then they stayed in the basement the night. But whether that's true or not, I'm not too sure. And of course, famously, the Beatles never played there, although they were in our recording studios out the back for the first recording by the Moody Blues, the first ever single cutting, which was Go Now. They were in the studio at the same time, and I've just found out through a bit of research in the last few days that they were booked to play at the Marquee in 63, 64, I think, around about then, and they were on their way back from Germany, gigging at the Star or whatever. Epstein had, in the meantime, got them a deal with EMI, and George Martin had deigned to give them a bit of studio time to see how it worked out. It changed everything. So the Marquee gig was pulled. They went off, and I think the next shows they did were probably at Hammersmith Odeon. because it went off like a rocket. That's. I mean, I'm still investigating that, and I've a friend of mine who has done work with McCartney. I've asked him to try and speak to him to see if he's got any background on that or any recollections on that. So,
so Dennis, well, welcome back. We can see you again.
Yes, I know. I've no idea what happened there. I didn't touch anything.
So where were we? You were there was
James
Last at this club where the girls were in uniforms.
Well, they were in, like schoolgirl uniforms. They wore boaters. It was either razors or something. Blazers.
That rings a bell.
And anyway, I spoke to him. He was a very nice guy, I have to say that. And I went in the toilet to take a pee, and there were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the band in there smoking a joint. So I remember that's what I remember of the night, sitting there. I knew 2 of them because one of them had played with Count Basie. And when I toured with Count Basie, I think it was Jigs Wiggum or one of the guys, because his band was always had good musicians. He had some of the best musicians because he paid good money. And the guys told me, he said, you do a tour with James Last, that's it. He said he pays such good money, you get good hotels.
Well, that's because he never paid for dinner. He never had to pay for catering.
Oh, exactly.
Well, no, I guess, I mean, all the guys I know that worked for him had really good stories to say about him. They said they got looked after.
How wonderful to be able to say, when I toured with Count Basie. That's
ridiculous.
Well, that's my memory of that is, I don't know if you guys will remember Sir Eric Miller, the financier that killed himself. He was Harold Wilson's mate. Anyway, I went up to Glasgow. We were touring and we were in Glasgow. And after the gig, we went back to the hotel, and Curtis Fuller, the trombone player, said to me, he said, come on, we're having a drink. And there's a guy here, he's rich, he's got loads of money. Walked in, and there's Sir Eric Miller, who had, about 2 weeks previous had been on the front of Private Eye. He had a big pyramid scheme and it collapsed. And he actually booked the Basie band to play at his daughter's wedding. They came over, played at his daughter's wedding, and went back. Anyway, we get up the next day, and I'm on the bus, and you know what it's like touring on bus. Well, Tony will know. Everyone has their seat. You've got to be careful. You can't just walk in and there's an empty seat, I'll sit there. So I used to sit at the back. And I remember it was Eric Dixon, the bass player, and Jimmy Night Train Forrest, the guy who wrote Night Train. And I'm sitting next to this guy. And suddenly, Eric Dixon, this is 9 o'clock in the morning, got a bottle of Blue Label Smirnoff out. And they started drinking from the neck. And Eric Dixon said to me, he said, Youngblood, it's your turn. And I had to give it a good slug, and I managed to keep it down. And after that, I was a made man. It was like joining the mafia.
Wow. Well, Rock Tales has taken an unexpected turn this time into the worlds of jazz and easy listening. In my experience, actually, I think jazz musicians, certainly classical musicians, are far more rock and roll than the rock and rollers. I mean,
yeah. Well, I Bobby Valentino. I knew Bobby, Tony.
Right. Yeah.
He played on a Style Council, a TV show.
Oh, right.
They did My Ever-Changing Moods, just piano and violin with Paul singing. I think it was up north somewhere. And lo and behold, I always remember this because I'm a South East London boy. And I went into a pub on Shooters Hill Road, the Red Lion, and there was Bobby standing there. And we had a drink. He was a good lad, Bobby.
Wow.
I saw you a few times.
Yeah, whereabouts?
Well, I can't remember. Brian Freshwater, does that name ring a bell?
It does indeed, yeah.
There you go, that's it. Because I signed a band of his called Havana Let's Go.
I remember the name, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
They had a really good single out called Torpedoes, and then unfortunately, the Falklands War started. And we had to pull the single.
perfect timing. I mean, hello.
Yeah, Galtieri blew my gig.
Yeah. It was bizarre.
Well, a massive attack, wasn't it? Came out when the Gulf War started, and they had
yeah.
sticker on the front of the CD, so it just said massive.
Went down like the Belgrano.